today or tomorrow. Anything else you want to say about, oh, Betsy, I guess you're muted. Never mind, Betsy can't talk. But please get your items into Betsy today or tomorrow. The ministry transition team is meeting. They will be reporting ideas and what you are to expect after September 1st by the end of the month, by the end of August. And it's probably not going to look a whole lot different than what it looks like right now. Please, I would like to remind you to stay connected with your support group. Give people a call. Not every day, not every week, but maybe somebody once a week. If you could just try to stay connected with your support group. And now I would like to go to Michael, who will play a video of the Chalice lighting by Jennifer Schmal and her children. Oh, hang on, I got to go back to the order of service. Here we go. Her children, Annie and Leo. And I'd like to put it out to everyone to make a video of your family or just you lighting the chalice and send it, and maybe describe a little bit about what lighting the chalice means to you. Just a short video, and send that to Doug by the Thursday before the Sunday that you would like it to be played. We'd like to get everyone involved, or get anyone who would like to be involved. So Michael?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Schmal. This is my son Leo Schmal, and this is Annie Schmal, and we are here to light your chalice today. Instead of reading a traditional chalice lighting, I printed off a cheesy poem on the internet. Hope is that you will carry on when you are down and out in life. Hope is that flame that burns when there's darkness all around. Hope is that smile which brightens even a dull day in your life. Hope is that dream which you can fulfill when you are ready to strive. Hope is that freedom when you are caged. So do not lose hope in life, and that is the only way to live life. We just need to keep hope alive. Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you to Jennifer, to the Schmal family. Now we go into our prelude. This is a time to prepare your heart and mind for what you will experience this morning. If you wish, drop a prayer stone in your own bowl of water. Michael will play Beethoven's Adagio Cantabile.
Nice pronunciation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I took that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna actually try to play this live for you this morning. So we're gonna see how that works. Can everyone hear my piano? Good? Can you hear it? There we go. Haven't tried this yet.
Thank you, Michael. It really sets the tone for our service this morning. And now we'll sing together, Voice Still and Small. It's not one that we're real familiar with, but Michael will have the words on the screen, I think.
Yes,
Yes?
I will.
Okay. And you can sing along or at least follow along.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, but I like the words. So just a second here. Sorry, I'm struggling. Very good.
Voice still and small, deep inside I hear you call, singing in the storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, calming my fears, quenching my tears, all through the years, voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing in the storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still we remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, all through the years,
Thank you, Michael. I like the words too. Now we'll do our unison affirmation. We pledge to create a welcoming community that celebrates human diversity, encourages spiritual growth, fosters responsiveness to our world, and commits to the future of all children. It's now time for Reverend Doug's message of the congregation-wide book club, White Fragility, the good, bad, racist binary. Reverend Doug?
Good morning, one and all. Thank you, Debbie, for service leading this morning. It's always good to have you with us, Debbie. And Bill, I see in the background as well. One of the primary reasons why racism in our nation, or why racism in our nation continues, according to Robin DiAngelo, the author of the book, White Fragility, is that there exists what she calls a good, bad, binary thinking about being a racist. Today, the vast majority of white people, she says, believe that to be racist means a person is bad. And I want to show you, or Michael's going to put up on the screen, a list of ideas that DiAngelo believes most whites hold about what it means to be a racist. And as you'll see, this good, bad, binary way of thinking by most white people indicates that to be a racist means you're bad, you're ignorant, or bigoted, or both. You're prejudiced, mean-spirited, perhaps old, and perhaps from the South. Across the gulf of this binary thinking is what most whites believe about being not racist, that that's good. But importantly, that includes the various criteria underneath that if you meet those criteria, that means you're not racist, that you're progressive, that you're educated, that you're open-minded, that you're well-intentioned, that you're young, and that you're perhaps from the North. Thank you, Michael. What's interesting is that Robin DiAngelo suggests that these patterns of white thinking came about after the 1960s civil rights movement. Before that, as she says, it was more socially acceptable for white people to speak and act as a racist. Afterwards, however, it was suddenly not okay. And that is because images of white Southerners brutally beating and attacking peaceful Black protesters during the 60 civil rights marches. Those images were widely shown on TV and in magazines. Those images rightfully horrified most white Americans and led to their new understanding that to be racist means to be one of these bad people. Now, upcoming is a brief video clip that Michael will show of what America saw happen to peaceful Black protesters in March 1965, during the very first Selma, Alabama march. And the shorter man you'll notice wearing a trench coat in the video is John Lewis, who at the very young age of 23 was chosen to lead this first Selma march. And as you'll see, Lewis and so many others were severely injured by over 150 Alabama state troopers armed with clubs, bullwhips, and tear gas. And Lewis suffered a skull fracture and was hospitalized as a result. And now, Michael, if you'll show that video.
The men are facing your sheriff. Look at it. Right to be in this court. Come on, let's go. We have a right to be in this court. This courtroom belongs to all the citizens of the county. We have the right to be here and will not in any way be interfering with the pursuit of traffic.
Be detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that this is an unlawful assembly. You're to disperse, you're ordered to disperse, go home, or go to your church. This march will not continue. Troopers here, advance toward the group. See that they disperse.
The scenes like what we just saw were widely broadcast throughout the 1960s civil rights protesters. And white America saw these images of peaceful Black protesters, in other instances, being attacked by German Shepherd dogs, clubbed and tear gassed by white police, or sprayed with high velocity fire hoses by white firemen. And even worse, white Americans saw elementary school-aged Black children simply trying to attend, according to court orders, all white schools, but they were screamed at and spit upon by white protesters. These images were seared into the minds of most white people in our nation as images that define what it means to be a racist. Someone who is intentionally hateful, mean-spirited, bigoted, and as I said, often a Southerner. And as a result, many white people who did not fit those criteria began to think of themselves as not racist. That enabled white people, including all of us today, to mostly ignore racism as a problem. We can too often subconsciously think that's someone else's bigoted hate. That's not me. And that thinking has also caused what D'Angelo says as the title of her book, white fragility. When most white people are told they have acted or spoken in some way that's racist, white people often become defensive. Or they're offended when they're told they are racist by inheritance because they were taught racially prejudiced attitudes and now benefit from systems of white supremacy. And because in the book, as D'Angelo says, because white people have learned that racist equals bad, we're offended. And we can close our minds, or then close our minds, when we're told we're unconsciously and implicitly prejudiced against people of color. Racists, therefore, for us, are those who commit, as I said, intentional acts of racial hate, like what we just saw happening during the 1960 civil rights protests, or what we saw more recently a few years ago of white nationalist torch-bearing marchers in Charlottesville. We're not like those people, we say to ourselves. We are well-intentioned and progressive and educated and good people. Robin DiAngelo says this in the book, White Fragility, quote, "The simplistic idea that racism is limited to individual intentional acts committed by unkind people is at the root of virtually all white defensiveness on this topic. To move beyond defensiveness, we have to let go of this common belief." End quote. Now, to move beyond this belief and our white fragility, D'Angelo asks that we learn to recognize when we unconsciously protect ourselves from deeper self-examination and the reality of our unconscious racism. One of the things white people often do to avoid being labeled a racist is to proactively make defensive or self-affirming statements about themselves. White people can often say, quote, "I'm not a racist because," quote, "I do not see color," or, quote, if people are respectful to me, I'm respectful to them regardless of race." Or they might say, quote, "I've marched in civil rights protests or other protests." Or I work in a diverse environment. Or I have people of color in my family. Or I or my kids have attended diverse schools. I live or have lived in a diverse neighborhood. I have ancestors who were Black or people of color. Or perhaps more subtly, but perhaps worse, quote, so-and-so is Black, but that has nothing to do with what I'm now going to say. And then they say something that is unconsciously racist. As D'Angelo implies, virtually 100% of white people have said one or more of those statements. To try and say they're not racist to others. I know I've said at least several of those. We've done this as a type of I am not a racist resume. But as D'Angelo asks, what do these statements ultimately prove? And as she says, nothing. In other words, a person could live in a diverse neighborhood, work in a diverse company, go to school in a diverse school, be a social justice, anti-racist advocate, or have protested against racism, and yet still harbor implicit, unconscious attitudes of white supremacy. I have a minister colleague who believes that some white progressives are the worst when it comes to self-examination and acknowledging they have implicit, unconscious, racist worldviews. Such people, this colleague says, can lull themselves into believing that they are fully enlightened about race. And they thereby refuse to do the challenging work of self-examination. And Robin DiAngelo herself admits that she has a racist worldview. And she thereby implies that virtually all white people do too. We can't help having unconscious racism because as white people, we were born into and we've grown up in and we still live within mostly white privileged workplaces and neighborhoods and cultures. We can't help the white privilege that others automatically give us from our banks, the stores we shop at, our work bosses, our schools, and of course in wider society in general. And those privileges given to white people, they implant in us a subliminal racist attitude or attitudes that then help perpetuate white supremacy and Black disempowerment. What Robin DiAngelo says about herself, I think, is helpful to all of us. As I said, she confesses to herself being racist. But she also crucially says that she is on a continuum of growing and learning to be better. She writes this in her book, quote, "Racism is so deeply woven into the fabric of our society that I do not see myself escaping from that continuum in my lifetime. But I can continually seek to move further along it, conceptualizing myself on an active continuum changes the question from whether I am or am not racist to a much more constructive question. Am I actively seeking to interrupt racism?" End quote. Now for me, that's a key question that I want to try and always ask myself. Indeed, just asking myself if I'm not a racist, well, that probably buys into the fallacy that to be a racist equals meaning or being a bad person. A much better statement and question for me is to say, yes, I am a racist. But am I working to change that? And am I helping to eliminate societal white privilege? The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates said, quote, "An unexamined life is not worth living," end quote. And I believe that gets at our overall purpose for living, to improve ourselves so we can then improve the world. If we fail to continually try to examine and improve our own inner and outer flaws until the very last breath we breathe, we fail to add value to the world and thereby establish meaning for our own existence. Every person alive has dignity and value, but that implies we're to use our value and the value that we've been given, not just for ourselves, but to help others. And today, of course, we see our Black sisters and brothers suffering from racism. So I believe it's our existential duty to honestly examine ourselves on how we add to their hurt. In life, it matters whether we live authentically. None of us, of course, wish to be liars. But we lie to ourselves, however, and to the world if we deny the racist systems which have insidiously infected our subconscious thinking. Jesus once said, quote, "Truth will set us free," end quote. And the truth Jesus referred to is that every single person is flawed. All have fallen short of perfection, but we must strive to attain perfection, even though we never will. And it's only by deeply examining ourselves, recognizing our own inner flaws, and then working to change them, that we are freed from prisons of self-delusion and lack of growth, arrogance, hypocrisy, and doing harm to others. In that regard, I think unconscious racism can be a lot like the disease of alcoholism. People often think someone with an addiction is a bad person. But there's abundant medical evidence showing that addictions are biologically or genetically inherited. Very few people, almost none, intentionally choose to be an addict, but nevertheless find themselves being one because of influences beyond their control. They can, of course, deny the reality of being an addict and do nothing to change it, or they can grow and learn ways to be better. I have a friend who confesses to whomever he meets that he's an alcoholic. Of course, as soon as he says this, there's often an awkward silence until he adds that he's an alcoholic who is 24 years sober. He's an alcoholic on a lifelong continuum to fight against his genes and remain sober. Because of his willingness to confront his innate alcoholism, he's grown into an influential man who's doing a lot of good. And it's in this way that I believe being a racist is similar perhaps to being an alcoholic. A person can be either one, not by choice, but because of inherited factors beyond our control. It doesn't make one bad. But crucially, a person is responsible to do something about their condition. And I imagine that is how Robin DiAngelo feels about herself. She's a racist not by choice, but nevertheless one by fact. And now she must continually seek to self-improve. And importantly, her book, White Fragility, is both her own confession and a call for us to do likewise, to admit our racism, no matter how enlightened we may think we are. The fact is, no matter what we tell ourselves, we as white people are all unconsciously racist. We will not be cured of that from reading this book or even before any of us pass. Healing ourselves will be challenging. But if we take this book seriously, if we honestly self-examine ourselves, we can diminish racism's effects within us and in society. We can change the world by changing ourselves. As my topic for today, to do that, we must get past the good, bad, binary thinking that being racist equals being a bad person. We are good people, even though we have inherited often unconscious racist attitudes. We can be dramatically better people by doing something to diminish and eliminate those inner attitudes and the racist systems that benefit us. And I hope and pray for us all. May that truth set each of us free. And I wish you all much peace. And as we did last week, I want to open it up for your comments and thoughts. I have some questions, some discussion questions that I hope can lead to some introspection, some thinking. But I do welcome everyone as they are willing to speak and to share. I want to add that this is a safe place. I believe it is, and I hope you feel that as well. This is a safe place to share, and to share as your heart would lead you. And so my first question for all, and to throw it out here as a discussion question, is how do you think Robin DiAngelo's explanation of what it means to be racist, how do you think that challenges our mainstream ideas about being racist? I welcome any of your thoughts.
I've already got an open mic, so I can respond to that. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. When I was in grad school, I have a master's in social work, and I had a professor who talked about our racism, and this was in the 90s. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a racist. I'm not one of these people who would hit somebody in the head with a club. I just didn't know what, I couldn't. And really, honestly, it hasn't been until the last few years that I started to grasp what he meant. I've read a lot of books. It's certainly not an exhaustive list, but the first one I read was The Warmth of Other Suns, which tells about the migration, the great migration of African-American people to the North and to the West. And that opened my eyes a lot. And, I've read a lot more. And I'm still not there. And I'm still not there. I'm still evolving. But I think she hit the nail on the head with the binary.
You believe, Debbie, that is something that exists in our society, that belief that she talks about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. For me, it was eye-opening. to learn that how I am seeing the world, how I have seen the world. I never thought of it that way about how I see the world and how I see myself. Thank you.
Well, I as I mentioned to you earlier, Doug, one of the things that helped open, or is helping to open my eyes, is Michelle Obama's book. When she wrote that when she was in college, she pretty much associated with African American people because it gave her a break from having to live in the dominant culture. And I thought, oh my God, I of course, duh, you know, a light bulb. And one of the things in the very first book that I read, the Warmth of Other Suns, was about an African-American surgeon who was a surgeon in World War II. When he drove from Atlanta to LA, he couldn't find a place to stay. No one would let him stay. I mean, that's a 4-day drive. No one would let him have stay in their hotel.
Yeah.
And that never occurred to me. I mean, I don't believe, for me, I can ever understand what it's like to be African American, because I'm not African American and I've not lived their lives, but I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to understand. I feel like, you know, boom, 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 it's thick. It's a thick skull here that I'm trying to get it.
Yeah. Thanks, Debbie, for your comments.
Hey.
Diane?
I'm unmuted, so I'm guessing it's me. I think that I really have trouble with the idea of being binary, good, bad, but I'm struggling to not call people bad, because to me racism is bad, and I think people who do bad things are bad people, you know. So I can't come to the point where racism can be a person who's good. I just can't get there yet. I don't know if I haven't grown up enough or don't have a wise enough feeling. You know, my own family, my brother once said something about towel heads back in the early 2000s or so when the war started, and I threw him out of my house. It was Christmas and I threw him out because we don't speak those kind of language in my house, you know, because I think it is a good person who doesn't judge basis of race, religion, da da da. Yes, I know that sometimes we have those unconscious racism. I get that, but that consciousness, you know, if I saw a picture of a man with a Nazi mask on, and I immediately wanted to reach through my computer and punch him. You know, I can't get past that. Those are bad people because they think bad things.
They are bad people.
Yeah, and you know, I appreciate what you said, Diane, because you know, that's really what I used to think until, I guess, really with this book, kind of the light bulb went off. That, as she says, oftentimes we were taught that since we were in cribs.
Yep.
So in that way, she's saying we're not bad people because we have not initiated racism. We've not caused it. We've just grown up in it. That doesn't take away our responsibility. But no, I really appreciate your honesty, because it is a struggle to get past, I think, that good, bad binary.
I don't even know if I can. I obviously, now seeing it, I might try, but I'm not sure that I can. I mean, yeah. I even as far as the kids now are saying all cops are bastards, excuse my swearing, ACAB. It's a big thing. And it's the idea that, you know, the police officers further the bad system, even if they're not the ones who are being racist or beating people up or killing people for nothing, you know, but their silence or their blue line adds to the problem. And that, so that way all cops are bad. And I argued with Kaylee for days that I couldn't say that because I know cops who are good people. And she's like, but they're not. They're part of the system that allows this to happen. You know, and by being part of the system that allows those things to happen, they also are part of the problem.
Well, I would like to clarify that all cops are bastards does not mean that all cops are bad. It's very
Right.
specifically, it's not saying all cops are bad. There can be good cops, but they all are bastards, which bastardization is not necessarily a bad thing. It's when you take something of its original meaning and become something completely new, which cops are intended to protect people, police officers are and they're not doing that. So they're all part of a bastardized system. So it's not, we're not saying all cops are bad. We're saying all cops are bastards, which
Right.
is.
And that's what I finally figured out. And by the way, she is standing off screen going like this on everything you're saying, Michael. She's like making like big arm movements, like, yes, what he said. Da, da, da. So yeah, you're perfect on. And that's what I was trying to say, but I didn't say it well.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you,
Michael.
Kaylee, in the background. I see Linda Gutowski wants to say something.
I think that we just have to stop relying on the definition that we grew up of as racism.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that to be racist is simply to be human. You can't negate your entire humanity. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's there. It's not something that you can get rid of. What you can do is to help be kind to all other people. And you just have to get rid of that original definition of racism. It's there, it's never going away, and everybody is racist.
Yeah.
And there's no, non-color or anything. And I just had one other thought I just wanted to share, and I think Robin DiAngelo points this out a number of times, that there are people who feel that bigotry would disappear if only the African Americans would behave better. They don't see the onus as being on white people to make bigotry disappear. They feel that it's all the African Americans' fault, and that if only they would change, bigotry would disappear.
Well.
And that to me was a core of Robin DiAngelo's book.
Mm. Yeah, well, thank you, Linda. I'm interested in what you said, Linda, though, that we need to get past this, how we've been raised. And but how do you think, for those of us that have had this binary way of thinking, and people out in society that still have that binary way of thinking, how do you think that helps to perpetuate racism? Even though obviously it's not intentional, that binary way of thinking, but how do you think it helps perpetuate racism?
Well,
or anyone else can.
Anyone else, yeah, because I think that we just have to keep working, like the alcoholic has to keep working, not to have it manifest as an evil.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, I tend to be the kind of person that always kind of turns to science. And one of the really eye-opening actually messages that I heard in our church was by Tom Lotman. I think he's here somewhere. There you are, Tom. And he was talking once about childhood trauma and stressors, and how these things have a gigantic effect on who we are and who we grow up to be. And it's way more than you could ever possibly imagine. And to me, we're so affected by fear because of the way our brain is programmed, right? So, we have this unconscious, like, lizard brain in us that just responds so violently to fear. And I think that, anytime there's something that we don't understand that makes us afraid, whether we even realize it or not, it's just an unconscious thing that happens. And so we don't really, whenever we don't understand racism, right? But we don't understand, there's a lot about this that we don't understand. We don't understand the gray areas, and we don't understand what it's like to be Black if we're white. There's all these things that we don't understand. And so I think what we try to do is we try to simplify it, right? It's so much easier to make things black and white than to see the a million shades of gray. So we just try to say racist bad, not racist good. And that's just our way of simplifying it to make it less scary. All we're trying to do is we're just trying to make ourselves less scared, which is like what we're always trying to do. We're just trying to be less scared. So I think that it's kind of a vicious cycle, because the more we do this, the more it gets put into our head, racist people bad, not racist people are good. And that's comforting to us, and we just want to be comfortable. So this idea just gets naturally perpetuated, and so we have to just get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's, that's hard. It's just like Diane was saying, I don't know if I can do it, because it's really hard. You just have to be comfortable with just being like, no, I'm not a 100% great person. I have aspects of me that are racist, and every single person in the world is like that. And that's a bad feeling. It's scary. So we don't like it.
Yeah. I'll just add a personal experience of mine, which I've alluded to in my message. A few years ago, I had a conversation with a person of color who,
how to do that.
this person indicated to me that I'm a racist, saying that I am a racist. I mean, essentially what Robin DiAngelo says. But because of that good, bad, binary way of thinking, which I had built into me, I was immediately horrified and offended. I'd never thought of myself as being racist, as being a bad person. I thought of myself as, being open-minded and educated and fair to everyone. And yet it's only been within the last year or two or three that even I have had to wrestle with the inner stuff in me that is racist, and that I realize were put there by my upbringing, by society, my parents, a whole number of different factors built that into me. And I haven't chosen it, but it's there. And I still have to, as Robin DiAngelo says, do something about it.
Sue wanted to say something. Sue Sale.
Sue, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Sue, you're muted. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay. I think we have to also distinguish between racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. They all have different connotations, and you cannot be a white supremacist and still be bigoted. You can not be what we consider by and large racist, but still be bigoted. They're very different things, and they all have, as far as the African American community is, they all have the same overall effect. Whether you're racist, whether you're bigoted, or whether you feel that you're there's white supremacy. I don't know. White supremacy to me is such a different thing from. I like to think I'm not racist, but I have to honestly say, walking in our neighborhood, everybody walks their dogs, yada yada yada. If I see an African American walking a dog, the first thing that comes to my mind, whether I like it or not, is I wonder where they live. That's not a good thing, but it's there, and I can't make it go away. I can try, but that's something that comes into my mind when I see a person of color. And the interesting part is, if the person of color is Asian, Indian, or whatever, aside from Black, it does not come into my mind, I wonder where they live.
Yeah.
Now, where that came from, I don't know, but it's there.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. And I think you've just identified the kind of inner reflections about the thoughts that we have from time to time about issues of race, and realizing how you are reacting. That's one of the things that Robin DiAngelo calls us to begin to learn how we're reacting, what we're thinking, and to really examine those honestly about ourselves. And I think that's the kind of the inner examination that can lead to helping us grow out of having these kinds of thoughts in those situations, or in perhaps ones that could cause even more harm to people of color. I want to move on, and it's a very good discussion. We'll have 3 more Sundays available for discussion. I really do appreciate everyone's thoughts and comments on this, and I appreciate everybody here who is still online watching and attending. I do believe this is a very, very important book. It's a book for our times, and I appreciate everybody seriously reading it and considering it. Thank you all, and I'm going to turn it over back to Debbie for the remainder of our service.
I want to thank you all too. Very good discussion. Now it's time in our program and our service to share our wealth. Michael will play the Be Good by the Morningsiders. This is a time where you can go and get your checkbook or get on Givelify and use that to help support the church. Michael?
I just want to say a quick word. This is a song about wanting to do the right thing and not necessarily knowing what that is. And I think that's very relevant in this situation. So.
Don't care which way I go.
As always, Michael, your songs, the songs that you choose are apropos. I really appreciate the job that you do for us. Thank you. It's now time for our sharing of our joys and sorrows. So if you would like to share something, please mention something in the chat, raise your hand, and Michael will unmute you.
Diane Benedict, I see.
Diane, you have
You
to,
have to unmute yourself.
you have to unmute yourself.
I'm
Diane.
sorry, I was talking to myself there for a minute.
There you go.
So just a couple quick things. First of all, I want to say the Harbinger always has me listed as needing prayers or emails. And I always want them, don't get me wrong, but I'm not necessarily very bad off right now. I have my liver needs replaced and I haven't been sick enough to really be a contender. So I think it's because everyone's praying for me. So you're welcome to keep doing it, but there's nothing specifically wrong with me this week or the last 5 weeks for necessary. So that's my joy, I guess. And then I wanted to say just how glad, I say this a lot, but I really am glad for all of you and for your openness and your sharing and just everything that it is about this congregation. I'm grateful. So thank you.
Please check the announcements for, oh, my battery is running low. Please check your announcements, the announcements for folks who need your thoughts and prayers. One of the things.
Sue Seo has in the chat box that she has something to say. Sorry.
That was
No, I think that's left over from before.
from before, Diane. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
I did want to mention two folks who need your maybe thoughts and prayers especially, and maybe some help. Phyllis Berenson has had to have an additional surgery on her knee, so she's basically back at square one. People are supplying some meals, but if you would like to help out with that, please contact Doug. And Adrienne Campbell, our office help, has fallen and broken her hip.
Oh.
She will be out of work for a couple of weeks, away from work, and we could use some volunteers to help out in the office. If you feel like you can do that, please contact Sue Klein. And if you would like to send a card or a text to Adrienne, please contact Doug for that, and he'll give you the information. Thank you. Now it's time for our last hymn of the service, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
This was cool because my dad happened to be doing the same hymn, so I got to play it with him. So I'll show you this. Everyone sing along, it's a classic.
When our heart is in a holy place,
Thank you, Michael and Les. It was good to see your dad as well. I'd like to leave you with some closing words from a book that I've owned for a long time. It's called Life Prayers, Affirmations to Celebrate the Human Journey from Around the World. I chose a prayer from this book to read at both of my daughter's weddings. It's a lovely book. I highly recommend it. This message, or these verses, are from the section called Prayers for Solidarity and Justice. And here they are. May our eyes remain open, even in the face of tragedy. May we not become disheartened. May we find in the dissolution of our apathy and denial the cup of a broken heart. May we discover the gift of the fire burning in the inner chamber of our being, burning great and bright enough to transform any poison. May we offer the power of our sorrow to the service of something greater than ourselves. May our guilt not rise up to form yet another defensive wall. May the suffering purify and not paralyze us. May we endure. May sorrow bond us and not separate us. May we realize the greatness of our sorrow and not run from its touch or its flame. May clarity be our ally and wisdom our support. May our wrath be cleansing, cutting through the confusion of denial and greed. May we not be afraid to see or speak our truth. May the bleakness of the wasteland be dispelled. May the soul's journey be revealed and the true hunger fed. May we be forgiven for what we have forgotten and blessed with the remembrance of who we really are. May you have a good week. And you're welcome. Please stay on if you can and wish to, for about 15 minutes of chatting.